Welcome back to Firewatch. Joining us now in the studio to talk a little bit more about residential fire sprinklers is Assistant Fire Chief and Fire Marshal for the City of Raleigh, Peter Brock. Chief Brock, thanks for joining us on Firewatch.
It's my pleasure to be back again, Ron.
Okay, so residential fire sprinklers. From a code enforcement standpoint, why are residential fire sprinklers so important?
It's all about life safety and reducing the number of injuries. There's been a lot of data out there that suggests that improves having a sprinkler system will just plain save your life. An example that I like to give is Prince George's County, Maryland did a 15-year study from 1992 to 2007. And in that time period, they had 101 fire deaths. And they were all in buildings that did not have sprinkler systems in it, whether it be a commercial building, movie theaters, residential. In the same time period, they had 0 deaths in buildings that had sprinkler systems. There's similar statistics and ratios for the number of injuries, and the actual dollar amount that fire causes, the damage, it was reduced almost in half in buildings that have sprinkler systems versus those that do not.
And so really primarily the idea of the sprinkler system is life safety first, is that correct?
Absolutely, and that's there are 3 categories of sprinkler systems, and the categories that you will find in apartment buildings, townhomes, and in single-family homes are designed for life safety, meaning get the occupants out. And that's our number one concern. Property we can replace, we can rebuild it. We want to make sure that the occupants can escape.
Now you even mentioned though that in addition to the life safety, the property values, you're not causing quite as much damage in a sprinkler building versus a non-sprinkler building. Why is that?
And the sprinklers are able to extinguish the fire before the fire department ever arrives. And I like to use the analogy of sprinkler systems is each sprinkler head is like a firefighter. They're all the time. There's 24/7. They don't malfunction. Their track record for reliability is way above average. They're just like having a firefighter in your home, ready to go all the time.
And ultimately, when you think about it too, a sprinkler system, when it's discharging, if there's a fire in your home, it uses a lot less water, does it not, than a fire engine arriving with firefighters using a hose line. Is that correct?
That is correct. The average sprinkler head discharges about 15 to 18 gallons per minute, whereas hose lines off of fire trucks range anywhere from 100 to 250 gallons per minute.
And since the sprinkler system is catching the fire when it's small, it requires less water than when the fire department gets there and you've got more fire and then more water.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about getting residential fire sprinklers into homes. If Prince George's County, Maryland has done this study and it shows that they work, and we know that they're required in all residential construction in the state of California, why in North Carolina have we been a little bit slower to get these into homes in our state?
It's cost. There is a cost, and it's about $2 a square foot to install a sprinkler system when your home is being built. And that is the best time because it's the cheapest. If you want to remodel or retrofit your home, it's more in the $3 per square foot range. And when you start talking about a home that's several thousand square feet, economics does play a factor in that.
Okay. Now, what would you say to the homeowner who is building a home and they're presented with options? When you're building a home, you get all kinds of options, granite countertops, and nicer this, nicer that. How would you educate the residents to say, you know what, when you're doing this construction, in addition to putting in the granite countertops, which you really like, how do you encourage those homeowners to consider a residential fire sprinkler? What would you say to that?
It's all about safety. As I started out with, it's about life safety. And as the city's fire marshal, I walk the walk and I talk the talk because I have sprinklers in my home. And I chose that option over something else just for my own peace of mind.
Now, when we think about your sprinkler system in your home, let's talk about that for a minute, since you've lived with them now for several years in your home. As the homeowner, do you have to do anything with them, or are they just there?
They're just there. I've never had an issue with it. It's a very basic system. It's not complex. There's no maintenance. One of the misconceptions about having a sprinkler system is, well, they will cause water damage, whether it's a burst pipe or a leaking valve or something along that lines. And that's not necessarily the case. They're very reliable. There's no more increase in having water damage from a sprinkler system than there is any other plumbing fixture in your house. Here in the department, we occasionally run into where there's been water damage from a malfunctioning sprinkler system, but typically that's because someone has hit one of the sprinkler heads with a golf club, or maybe they were hanging some clothes on it, or they hit it in a commercial building with a forklift or some stock. And so it's been because of humans doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing, rather than the sprinkler system actually becoming a problem.
So really, there's no more increased risk with a sprinkler system in your home than any other plumbing fixtures?
There is not, no.
Okay. So as the city's fire marshal, how do we move forward in trying to get residential fire sprinklers in more homes, not just here in Raleigh, statewide? What kind of things are we doing as a fire department to help steer that ship towards that?
Well, it's about education, and educating the population about what are the advantages. And there are, other than life-saving, which is the most important, a lot of insurance carriers give a discount on your homeowner's insurance for having a sprinkler system, because they consider their property more protected than without. We had a similar circumstances back in the 1960s and 70s about smoke detectors. For years and years and years and years, we never really gave any thought about smoke detectors. We realized how many lives per year were saved with that early notification, and that has a proven track record over several decades. And now adding fire sprinklers is the next step. There are statistics out there that your chances of surviving a fire are 60 or 70% increased with just a smoke detector. It goes to over 85% when you add a sprinkler system and a smoke detector.
Okay. Now, since the building code, the International Building Code, with the North Carolina adoption, is what is used in North Carolina for new home construction, are there efforts on the part of the Fire Marshal's office to try to work through the Code Council, the International Code Council, to get language into the building code to get sprinkler systems in homes?
There is. When the legislature is in session each year, we communicate with them and deliver a very similar message as what I'm delivering today. And we also have that same message trying to be delivered on Capitol Hill for a national code that would recognize sprinkler systems everywhere.
Right, I know that's one thing that I've worked with, is going up to Washington and working with Congress, trying to get them to pass some legislation to help with the cost of sprinkler systems, and primarily as it relates to college campuses. I know when I was in school at Carolina, there was a fire where several students died in a fraternity house, and since then, Chapel Hill went back and required all Greek housing to have sprinklers put in by the year 2000, which they've done.
Yes.
Is there anything like that here in Raleigh for multifamily homes? When folks are watching this, I guess I should ask, how should they know if their home should have a sprinkler system in it right now as it stands?
Well, backing up just a bit, that North Carolina State University embarked on a similar project to their fraternity houses, and they too have been retrofitted with sprinkler system as a result of the fire in the university system a number of years ago. The existing homes, of course, my recommendation is all homes should have sprinkler legislation and or sprinkler systems installed. And we're working with Congress and the state legislature so that that's not a financial burden, because it is a lot of money, and that's a lot of money to a lot of people, and it's just not something that folks can afford. So we're working on some tax incentives, perhaps some financial incentives to help the average homeowner with this expense.
So Chief, when we look at the existing occupancies out there now, things like townhomes, condos, apartment buildings, since sprinkler systems aren't required in single family homes as of yet, and those are considered multifamily for the most part, how am I supposed to know if where I'm living is required to have a sprinkler system?
It depends on the building. If it's a multifamily, like an apartment building, if it's over 4 stories, it has to have a sprinkler system in it. Townhomes that are linked together, that have over 4 units together, 6, 7, 8 units, are also required to have sprinkler systems. And that's been in effect for a few years now. As a sidebar to that, we recently strengthened that code where the systems were not required on balconies. And we've had quite a few fires in North Carolina that were started on the balcony of apartment buildings. And it extends up the exterior of the building and goes into the attic and ultimately burn the roof off of these buildings. Well, the code has been strengthened that will require sprinkler heads actually on the balconies now, and that's reduced that fire damage significantly.
So I guess if somebody's watching this and they're in an apartment or a townhome now, and they look up, if their home has sprinklers in it, they're good. If it doesn't, then it wasn't required to have it. So basically, there are no buildings in Raleigh that are supposed to have a sprinkler system that do not. Is that a fair assessment?
That's true with the strength of our inspections program, that if you're required to have a sprinkler system in your building, you certainly have one.
So Chief, if somebody wanted more information about residential fire sprinklers, where are some resources where they could get that information?
Well, certainly the web is the best place to start. You can look at all the studies that we talked about here during this segment and look at a few others. Sprinkler contractors that would actually install these kind of systems, they are a good resource, not only for cost of the systems, but you know, the expert opinion on what to install. And if you have any other questions, you're certainly welcome to call the City Fire Marshal's office. You can speak to me directly. Our number is published out there in a lot of different places. And you can contact us on email, and that's at fireprevention@raleighnc.gov.
Okay. Well, Chief, I appreciate you taking the time out today to come and talk to us about a little bit more statistics of residential fire sprinklers. So I appreciate your time.
Certainly.